Salvete discipuli. So today we have our second video in chapter 2. So this is the second of 3 videos you're going to have associated with chapter 2 in Latin for the new millennium. In this video, we're going to look at 2 different concepts. We're going to look at the characteristics of verbs, and we're going to also look at the present stem. Okay. What you should know is that main verbs, meaning the verbs that are the main verbs in a sentence, have 5 characteristics or properties. They have person, number, tense, voice, and mood. Okay? Person, number, tense, voice, and mood. And I'm going to go through and show you what each one of these characteristics means, or what the options are for that. When it comes to person, you can have a first person, second person, or third person verb, okay? Like here in this chart, first person, second person, and third person. And you can have these in either the singular or the plural. First person singular, we translate with the subject I, okay? And second person singular, we translate with the subject we. So first person singular, I, first person plural, we. Second person singular and plural is you, although if you grew up in south of Buffalo like I did, it's perfectly okay to put the second person plural translated as y'all, but I leave that up to you. Third person singular translates as either he or she or it, okay, depending on the context of the sentence. And third person plural translates as they. So these are the personal pronouns that are the subject of any given person and number and the characteristic of a verb, okay? So if you have a first person singular verb, you're going to translate it I did something. If you have a second person plural, it's going to be you did something. Third person plural, they did something, so on and so forth, okay? Tense refers to when this action took place. It could happen in one of 6 tenses in Latin, okay? So there are a total of 6 tenses in Latin. For today, we are only learning the present tense, okay? So for right now, present tense is all you have to worry about. Likewise, there is either the active or the passive voice. And for today, all you need to know is active voice, meaning that the subject of the verb is doing the action of the verb. That's what active means. And then today we are going to learn the indicative mood. Now, there are 3 moods in Latin: indicative, imperative, and subjunctive. You will learn the imperative very soon. Subjunctive, you're not going to learn for a long time. Imperatives give commands, and indicatives are statements and questions. So if you're making a general statement or a question, you're going to use the indicative mood. Quite frankly, the majority of the verbs you're going to come across are in the indicative, because that's what we more or less speak in every single day. Now, to conjugate a verb is to put the verb in all of its possible persons, numbers, tenses, voices, and moods, right? And remember, in the last video, I told you guys that you need the principal parts in order to put a verb into all of its possible forms, right? And all of its possible person, number, tense, voice, mood. So you need those principal parts in order to conjugate. And now you're going to find out why. First and foremost, let me just tell you that when I say the word present system, I am referring to the present, the imperfect, and the future tenses. All 3 of those tenses make up the present system, because when you conjugate those 3 tenses, you use what is called the present stem. Okay, so you need the present stem in order to conjugate verbs in the present tense, in the imperfect tense, and in the future tense. Now, not much of that is too necessary for right now, because we're only conjugating in the present tense for right now, okay? So, first thing we need to learn is how to get our present stem. If we need it to conjugate our verb, then we need to know how to get it. First and second conjugation verbs, you get the present stem by removing the RE from the second principal part. So in addition to the second principal part telling us what conjugation a verb is in, it also gives us the present stem. Okay. Now, once you get that present stem, you're going to use it to form the second person singular, the third person singular, the first and second and third persons plural. Because all you need to do is take your present stem and then add these personal endings, st, mustus, nt. Okay. Now, you may be asking, what about the first person singular? Well, the first person singular is actually the first principal part. Okay, so this box, the first person singular, present active indicative, is the first principal part. For the second principal part, for the second person singular, third person singular, first, second, and third person plural, present active indicative, you need your present stem. And then you add these personal endings. Notice that the personal endings for the first person singular can be an O or an M. For the present, it's an O, and you know that because it's the first principal part of a verb, right? So, amo, and then to form all the rest of these, we need to get our present stem. We get our present stem, as you see here, from removing the RE from the second principal part, which means that our present stem is going to be, why don't you take a guess before you go on? It's going to be ama and wide, okay, because we have amare. We take the RE off the second principal part to get our present stem, which is ama. We get the RE off of the second principal part, which is widere, and that means our present stem is wide. Okay. Now, this first person singular is going to go in the first box. This first principal part is going to go in the first box, and then after that you need your present stem, ama or wade, and then you add these personal endings, and that's how you conjugate a verb in the present active indicative. Okay. Now that you know how to conjugate it, and we're going to go through an example so you can see a real verb, you also have to know how to translate it. You can translate the present tense into English as I love, I am loving, or I do love, okay? So here is an example of amo, amari, amawi, amatum. We get our present stem of ama. Our first person singular, present active indicative, is the first principal part. Look at that. So amo translates as I love, I am loving, or I do love. Now once we have our present stem, ama, we just add our endings to them. So amas, you love, you are loving, you do love. Amat, he loves, she loves, it loves, he is loving, she is loving, it is loving, he does love, she does love, it does love, so on and so forth. Amamis, we love. Amatis, you love. And amant, they love. Okay? And we're going to go through that same pattern, that same process, that same method for video. We take off the RE from the second principal part, which gives us the present stem wide, right? The first person singular, the first principal part is our first person singular present active indicative, right? And then for the rest of these, we're going to need the present stem, the wade. So video, wades, wadet, wademus, wadatus, wadent. And of course, it's going to translate not as to love, because video means to see, but it's going to translate I see, or I am seeing, or you do see, etc. You see, he sees, she sees, it sees. Wadamus, we see, wadatus, you see, and wadent, they see. Okay, come prepared for class tomorrow with your notes and any questions, and I hope you have a lovely evening.